Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning to everyone, depending on where you are currently following us. So welcome to Africa ELTA Affiliate Series number 3 in Teachers' Voices. We are very happy today to host this session with our colleagues and member of our very dynamic teacher association in Africa today, this afternoon, to be sharing their experience and also ideas about professional development. So today, we are very happy to resume our activities and also to welcome these very special colleagues, teachers, and everyone this night. So without further ado, I will be just starting our talk, our interview. And also I would like to remind to our participants that it will be kind of interview, question and answers to our different panelists. And also don't forget to use the chat box to write any question, comment, or contribution you would like to do. So please, dear panelists, the first question is just about introducing yourself. So I would like to call Mr. Danson for a few words just to introduce yourself first before the next question. So Danson, can you unmute and introduce yourself, please?
Thank you so much. Good evening, all. My name is Danson Kimathi, and I'm a teacher of English from Kenya. I'm trained and I'm currently working in Kenya. And I'm glad to be part of Africa ELTA and also to represent Kenya in this bid to ensure that we become better teachers of English language. Thank you.
So thank you, Dansa, joining from Kenya. And thank you all colleagues following us from Kenya as well. So we would like to go and meet our next speaker, Iron. Would you please just introduce yourself?
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening for those who are joining from West Africa. My name is Irene Maganga, an English language teacher in a secondary school in Tanzania. I'm also the Professional Development Coordinator for the Tanzanian English Language Teachers Association, ELTA. You are very much welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Iron, and thank you, dear colleagues, following us from Tanzania. I wish you all the best session tonight. So before going to the next question, I would like also to give the same opportunity to Mr. Youssef to say a few words in an attempt to introduce himself. Youssef, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I would rather say hello to everybody. My name is Youssef Faleka. I'm 30 years old. 38 years old. I'm married and I have 3 children. I'm English teacher, teacher trainer, English anchor, news editor and reporter, businessman, and a PhD student at the Addis Ababa University, the well-known reputable university in the country. I am the newly elected president of ELTA, which stands for Ethiopian English Language Professional Association.
Well, thank you, Youssef, and thank you all for these very nice introductory words to our participants following us from everywhere in West Africa and beyond. So thank you, colleagues from Ethiopia following us tonight. So dear participants, remember you can interact with our panelists in the chat box. So feel free to ask your questions and make your contribution. And as I said a while back at the very beginning, the interview format will be question and answers. And I will be following the same order as I started with Danso, then Iron, and gonna finish with Youssef. Each one will be having time to answer to a very specific question that will be asked to them. So let's go tackle our first questions. It's about our teaching context. So Danso, would you like to explain us a bit about your teaching context in Kenya? Danso.
Well, thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to say that in Kenya, we have a setup system that currently we run that is known as 844, whereby we have the students going for 8 years in primary school, 4 years in secondary school, and 4 years in the university or tertiary institutions. But currently, the government is on the verge of introducing, or rather, we are phasing in something that we refer to as the competency-based curriculum. And you find that English language in both the system, that is the 844 system as well as the CBC system, is a key subject in all those levels, especially that is the 8 years in primary school and also the 8 years in the 4 years rather in secondary school. So you find that as teachers of English, there is a lot of need, or there is the need for us to at least try and our level best to become better teachers and grow professionally. And looking at the current trends, we need to get a situation whereby we go for the contemporary ways of teaching, because actually in Kenya, most of our teachers, you've been using the traditional methods of teaching. And I think it's about time, because for English language, which is virtually it's a language that is very new to most of us, you find that it is very, very important that at least we need to try our level best and become better and better in the same. So basically in Kenya, we are thinking of how best we can have this approach to ensure that even our teachers become better and better, and also they become contemporary teachers and global teachers as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dancer, for giving us this broad idea about the particular context in Kenya. So I would like to ask the same question to Iron. So Iron, would you please describe us your teaching context down there in Tanzania?
Thank you, Kasum. So for the case of Tanzania, we have English as a subject in primary schools, whereby other subjects are being taught in Kiswahili, which is our national language. And then the students from standard 4 to 7 are being taught English as a subject. So you can see there is a bit of a challenge. These students are using Kiswahili outside the class, and they have to be taught English as a subject. For the case of secondary school and higher education, we use English as a medium of instruction, but it is also there as a subject. So at least it's a bit easier.
Thank you, Aaron, for giving a picture about the context of the teaching of English in Tanzania. So would like also to ask the same question to Yusuf from Ethiopia. So Yusuf, what would you say about your teaching and learning context of English in your country?
Well, thank you. In most cases, if you look at, the English language across Africa, English is considered as the second language acquisition. The same is also true in Ethiopia, because English is considered as to be the second language or the foreign language for most or for all students in a country. So likewise, it is given as a subject from grade 1 up to grade 12, and it is considered as the medium of instruction from grade 9 all the way through tertiary level. This is how English is, the context of English in Ethiopia.
Thank you, Yusuf, for giving these details about the teaching context in Ethiopia. And thank you also for the comments in the chat box. I can see in Tanzania, English is being taught from standard 3 to standard 7. So thank you for this additional information in primary school as well. So let's move now to the second question directed to Danso. Danso, the question is, how many languages are spoken in your country? And how does this affect the teaching of English in your context?
Thank you so much. Now, in my country, we have very many tribes, but the dominant languages that we have, first of all, you have the Swahili language. It is dominantly used in Kenya because it is also a subject that is learned from primary school all the way to secondary school. Even for those who want to become specialists, they also do the same in tertiary institutions. But you find that we also have some other local languages. These ones, considering the many tribes that we have in Kenya, we have, well, virtually we have more than 40, because according to the statistics, we have around 40 something, around 43 tribes. And basically all these tribes will have their local language that is quite different from others. But you find that there are some that are very close to each other. For example, we have the likes of Gikuyu, we have the likes of Kimeru, the likes of Kikamba. They are very, very closely related, because you find that they have a common point of ancestry. Also, we also have other languages, but basically we have more than 40 languages that are used in Kenya, but the dominant languages are, the dominant language is Swahili language, but English is just taken as an official language for official functions, and also as a language of instruction in primary schools and also in secondary schools, other than when teaching a Swahili language, which is purely taught in Swahili.
Okay, so how does this multitude of languages affect the teaching of English in your context? Because you said that there are so many several languages, so many local languages. So how does this affect the teaching of English in your context?
This one has affected it in a very big way, because you find that we have some areas whereby English language is not used widely. Because you find that we have a setup whereby the students will only, or even the teachers themselves, they only use the English language while in class. But then the moment someone gets out of the class and then interact with other people there, they're likely to go and use Swahili language, or they go to use the local language. So you find that sometimes it becomes a bit to practice the speaking of English language. And you find that eventually, or rather at the end of it all, in most cases, you find that the targets or the objectives that we have, especially on the spoken English, are not met, because people don't practice using the language. Unlike Swahili and others, which are used frequently by the many people that we have around here.
Thank you, Dancer, for all these comments. Now I am leaving Kenya bound to Tanzania, where I will be very happy to meet Iron. So Iron, my question is, how many languages are spoken in Tanzania, and how does this affect the teaching and learning of English in Tanzania?
Thank you, Kasum. We have around 125 languages in Tanzania, but we have one national language, which is Kiswahili, which is spoken by almost everyone around the country. So when talking about English, which for others might be the third language, while for others might be the second, it's a bit challenging when it comes to teaching. So there are scenarios in some situations whereby when you go to a class, you have to teach these students, you have to translate the English sentence into Kiswahili, and then you translate it into the local language. So you see, it's like a very long process to at least get these students to know how to use English. For the case of speaking, we have 4 skills. So for the case of speaking, these students interact with teachers in the classroom using English, maybe. But when they go outside, when they go back to their homes, they are using Kiswahili and the other local languages. So you can see it's very hard to maintain the pace of these students speaking the language that you are teaching. But also these local languages, the native languages, tend to affect the pronunciation of the English language, which we are teaching. So sometimes students may do what you call direct translation, then they speak the same way they're speaking in Swahili to English. So that's how somehow it's the effect that we are facing when teaching English in Tanzania.
Thank you, Irene, for this how can I say, this situation of so many languages being spoken in Tanzania that have great effects on the teaching of English. So Yusuf, you have listened and heard this situation about Tanzania and Kenya. So I would like to ask you the same question. How many languages are there in Ethiopia, and how does this affect the teaching and learning of English?
Oh, thank you, Kasum. right now I'll be a little bit detailed about the language that are spoken in the country and how they really affect the teaching and learning process in Ethiopia. Obviously, Ethiopians are ethnically diverse, with the most important differences on the basis of linguistic categorization. Ethiopia is a mosaic of about 100 languages, even if it's not like Tanzania. Initially, I was thinking that we had more languages in Ethiopia than any other countries in Africa, but there is Iran from Tanzania. She say 125 languages are spoken in our country. It's amazing. So I was about to say too many languages in my country. The vast majority of language belong to the Semitic, Cushitic, and Omotic groups, all part of the Afro-Asiatic language family. A small number of languages belong to a fourth group. This is Nilotic, which is part of the Nilo-Saharan language family. The Semitic languages are spoken primarily in the northern and central part of Ethiopia. They include Ge'ez. Ge'ez is the ancient language. It could be, I think, in the world. There is Tigrinya, Amharic, Graginya, and Harari. Then Ge'ez, in the ancient language of the Aksumite Empire, that I just don't want to talk about the history of Aksumite dynasty, is used today only for religious writings and worship in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Tigrinya is native to the northeastern part of the country. Amharic is one of the country's principal languages and is native to the central and northwestern areas. There are also Graginya and Harari, which are spoken by relatively few people in the south and east. The most prominent Cushitic languages are Orominya, Somali, and Afar. So Orominya is native to the western, southwestern, southeastern, and eastern areas of the country. Somali is dominant among inhabitants of the Ogaden here in Ethiopia. Afar is most common in the Danakil plain. The Omotic language, chief among which is Walaita, Walaita is another language, and the people of these people who speak Walaitinya are called Walaita, are not widespread, being spoken mostly in the densely populated areas of the extreme southwest. The Nilotic language group is native to the western lowlands, with there is this language Kunama speakers. There's people Kunama speakers being dominant. Under the constitutions of Ethiopia, all Ethiopian languages enjoy official state recognition. However, Amharic, like I said earlier today, is the working language of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia. Together, nowadays, there is also Orominya. This language is also spoken widely in the country. It is one of the two most widely spoken languages in the country. In the 1990s, ethno-linguistic differences were used as the basis for reconstructing Ethiopia's administrative divisions. So these all languages are spoken in the country. If you ask me how those languages affect the teaching and learning process of English, like the other panelists mentioned, the first thing is their mother tongue directly influences their teaching and learning process. I can share my experience. While I was working quite 18 years ago, I was assigned to teach in the very remote part of the country. Then I was a fresh graduate and a fresh teacher. So I was teaching this grade 9 and 10 students. So I was explaining the subject matter in English. So those students didn't have any exposure of getting English language, and they didn't have even well-equipped teacher who were able to teach those students. So I found they were struggling to listen what I was saying. Then I had to use their mother tongue. As I told you, even if I was teaching in the Gurage region or in the Gurage zone, so Amharic was supposed to be used. As I told you, Amharic is widely spoken in the country. So somebody is interrupting.
Yeah, please go ahead, please.
So Amharic, so I had to translate. It was like, grammar translation method. So I was explaining the day's lesson in English. Then afterwards, I was, telling them the major points in Amharic. So completely the students were spoiled. So while I was explaining in English, they were like quite ignorant. So when I started explaining the day's lesson in Amharic, they were very much curious to learn and to get the most important part of the subject that I was delivering. Then, in the meantime, I had to figure out, because my students were totally being spoiled, so I had to figure out how I could do that in a way that can fit those students. So I told them that starting from today on, there's no going to be any Amharic. I'm going to explain everything in English. But before the starting of the class, I was giving them difficult vocabularies in Amharic, only the vocabularies. So knowing those difficult vocabularies of the day, so they were able to manage themselves. And I remember how they really struggled for quite weeks to catch up with my teaching style and then to develop their speaking and understanding, of course, level. And they completely stopped waiting for Amharic. Then by the end of the day, my students were way better. So this is a very practical example that I faced while I was teaching in the very remote part of the country. So completely their mother tongue or their language, their first language, really interfere the English language. So the way they pronounce, the way they translate, when they translate the sentences, they use, word translation. They are not able to translate ideas, because when we translate ideas. So when they turn Amharic to English or English to Amharic, they use the same way, the way they understand their mother tongue. So of course it has too many problems, but nowadays, thanks to God, their first language is becoming the very good input to teach, students across Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yusuf, Iron, and Dancer, for giving a clear description of the multicultural context of these three countries. We are very happy to host today. And for those who have just joined us, I would like just to remind you that we are in Africa ELTA hosting affiliate webinar series in Teachers' Voices. It is just a kind of opportunity to know more about our affiliate context in regarding to professional development and teaching and learning of English. So this is a kind of interview with question and answers, and I am going to read my third question directed to Mr. Dancer from Kenya. So Dancer, this time we would like to know what are the requirements for hiring English teachers in your country? So how do you hire your English teachers in your country? What are the requirements? What are the conditions?
Thank you. Well, for you to qualify to become a teacher of English in Kenya, first of all, you must have completed the basic level, that is the primary school. You go to high school, that is for the 4 years. Then after that, you go to a tertiary institution. In this case, you can go to a training college, or you can also have the universities, whereby you can take either a bachelor's degree in education, or you can as well take a diploma in education. And for you to qualify to become a teacher of English in secondary school, for example, you must first of all have attended a C+. We have some grading that is begins at A and then goes all the way to E. So you must have something to do with a C+, and then you must have also have passed in English as a subject. That is before you enroll for a course in a Bachelor of Education in Arts or in Science. So the moment you get enrolled to the university, you choose English and any other subjects. And in most cases, most of the universities, we have English and literature. So under English and literature, you're going to have two separate items. English is going to take the part of the linguistics aspects, and then literature is going to cover the literature bit of it. That is, you're going to have the European literature, you have American literature, African literature, and also other parts of, you're also going to have the literature of the other parts of the world. Then after the 4 years, you qualify now with a Bachelor of Education Arts. And in this case, after graduation, then you have to apply with the Teacher Service Commission that is in Kenya, so that they give you a certificate that makes you a qualifying teacher to teach English in a high school. Also, we have the other route now, and the other route is that instead of doing the bachelor's degree, you can opt for a diploma in education. So these ones are mainly offered by the teacher training colleges that we have around. Also, we have some universities offering the same. And then the moment you qualify, after you have graduated, then you need to go and then also get the license from the Teacher Service Commission. And practically, well, the government is trying to ensure that all the teachers who are teaching in primary and secondary schools, that is both in private and the public schools, are registered with the Teacher Service Commission. But maybe sometimes back we had some cases where we had unprofessional teachers teaching the same. But as the basic requirement by the government is that you must have qualified, you must have been given a certificate by the Teacher Service Commission, then you're going to go.
Thank you, Dancer, for this clarification about the ways your teachers are hired. Now leaving Kenya, would like to go up to Tanzania. So Aaron, I would like to know how your teachers are hired to teach English in your country.
Thank you so much. I think we're not very far from Kenya. When students complete primary school, then they go to secondary school, that's up to Form 4. Then they can opt to go to teachers training colleges for their certificates, and then they'll be hired as primary school teachers. But those who go up to Form 6, that's advanced level, they can take their diploma, and then others become primary school teachers while others go to secondary schools. And then for those who go to universities, you have to major in English language. It depends. There are some colleges, as you said, that you can take linguistics, that's English in parts of linguistics, and then you might take other subjects such as history or geography, but you are qualified to teach English since it's your major. But there are other teachers who take English and literature. They are also English language teachers. So it just depends on which path the teacher takes. But for the primary case, they don't major. They just go and being trained on how to teach different subjects. But when they come back to school, they have to choose if they have to teach English or any other subject.
Thank you, Aaron, for the clarifications. So Yusuf, also, I would like to ask you the same questions. How your teachers are hired in your context of Ethiopia?
Okay, thank you, Kasum. And well, it's almost similar to those two countries, right? Like Tanzania and Kenya. But if you ask me, what are the requirements? The requirements are that teachers should be a graduate from the stream of English language teaching. Unless and otherwise, the teacher is not able to teach in the schools. But it depends on the type of school. I mean, it could be private school or government school. In private and government schools, really strict, a teacher should graduate in English to be an English teacher. And it has some 4 levels. Like there is the first level from grade 1 up to grade 4, grade 5 up to grade 8, grade 9 up to grade 12, and the last one is tertiary. So most of the time, from grade 1 up to grade 4, it will be either diploma or degree holders who can teach, their students. And from grade 5 to 8, either degree or master. Someone who should have master or degree can teach.
Yusuf, are you there? Okay, I hope that we lost Yusuf. Yusuf, can you hear me? Okay, so Aaron, can you hear Yusuf? Maybe it's the problem is from me, my side.
No.
No. Okay, so maybe you have lost Yusuf. Anyway, we'll be very happy to having it back again and continue telling us about the context of Ethiopia and the way teachers are hired. So we just be moving to our next questions. And this time, it is one among the most important questions, to my opinion, a question I like very much to hear the answers from our different panelists. So going to Kenya to see Danso. So Danso, the question is, what are actually the challenges that most teachers face in Kenya? So tell us about the challenges your teachers face down there in Kenya.
Well, a teacher of English in Kenya is bound to face a number of challenges. First of all, one of the things that we do as teachers of English in Kenya is that we mainly teach English for exam purposes. That is, most of the teachers will teach so that the student can pass. And the overall way of assessment is by looking at the grade that the student has gotten at the end of the 4-year course or at the end of the primary level course, that is 8 years. So you find that in most cases, you may not focus mainly on the retention of the content and even the application of it. The reason why I'm saying is because that if a student goes to class and then at the end of it all scores a grade A, for example, it may not be very necessary for someone to think about, well, has this person retained the content that he has learned in class? Can he communicate effectively or not? One of the biggest challenges that we have is the mother tongue influence. We've seen that you have so many languages that we have, local languages that are there in Kenya. And you find that because of the regular practice in these local languages, our students don't get a chance, or rather don't like using the English language that we are mainly teaching here. And then you find that at the end of it all, the content that you have taught as a teacher is not going to be retained by the student, even in the application bit of it. For example, I'll give an example of something referred to as functional skills in secondary school. In these skills, you learn how to write letters, you learn how to write minutes, you learn how to record all these writings that you're going to apply in the real life situations. But because of that lack of practice, the students will not effectively have to put this into practice, because at the end of it all, they're just doing it for the sake of academic purposes. Why? Because at the end of it all, if I've scored A, if I've scored a B+, or maybe something a good grade, then it comes as if it is automatic that I have qualified for the same. So you find that the teachers face these challenges on the retention of the content because of the mother tongue influence. At the same time, also, sometimes we lack the in-service trainings that are basically essential for every teacher to grow. You understand that being an international language, sometimes it needs someone to get some in-service training so that you can get to cope or to get to know the dynamics of the teaching of the English language. And it is very unfortunate that sometimes just a person gets the knowledge that they got in the secondary school, in the university rather, or even in the college, and that is all, just down there on the ground, and you're just working for the sake of, you've been employed, and that is what you're supposed to do. And because of this, you find that most teachers don't get that chance to familiarize themselves with the new techniques that they can use. Also, the integration of technology in teaching. Most of the areas in Kenya, we don't have that chance to utilize technology in our teaching. And you know that English is something that if you integrate technology in the lessons that you have, it becomes more effective. I want to give an example of the period, the COVID period. I think this one affected almost everyone in the world. Not almost everyone, but technically everyone in the world. And we are under a situation whereby our students went home for around 1 year. You can imagine of a scenario whereby a student has gone home, there's no teacher of English, just the parents who are basically talking Swahili or other local languages. And you can imagine that that student is going to come back to school after 1 year to go and meet the teacher again. So in this case, because of this kind of a setup, some of the schools, actually the private schools and some public schools that are a bit advanced in terms of the economic status of the school and such, will try and they have these online classes for their students. But then majority of the students could not get a chance to be taught through technology, and also when they're at home rather, because we basically rely on teaching our students when we are facing them face to face. So as teachers, it's a very big challenge, because if you just interact with the student when they're at home and then they leave, then that is all, then it becomes very hard for you to have that continuity of ideas and the way you want them to express them. So that one has been a very, very big challenge. And well, in a way, I would say that even our local teachers, sometimes maybe we are a bit complacent, because we don't, most of us, I will just talk about most of us, because most of the teachers around have not gotten a chance to go and look at the best ways they can integrate technology in learning. I was looking at some of I went to a conference, that is the English Language Online Teaching Conference by Oxford University Press. And I noted that there are so many activities that we can engage our learners in when we are teaching them. And most of them, other than just getting to the class with the notes, you are prepared with the notes, the lesson plan, and the rest, there are some other things that will help them understand the concepts quite very clearly. I will talk about something on the influx of, we have a number of people from other foreign countries who have descended or who come to Kenya so that they can have their studies of English there. I'll give an example of Somalia. We also have some students from Sudan. So you find that when these students come to our schools, because of the unrest that we have had in their countries, sometimes it becomes very hard for them to cope. Why? Because we've been traditionally teaching our students from the primary school to high school levels just by using the traditional methods that we feel will be best suited for them. But now imagine of this person who doesn't have knowledge on the basics, and now you want to have them get to the level that their students are in them. And if probably you use things like technology, you adopt some other and new methodologies, then it becomes quite easy. So we have had a challenge whereby we have not had the chance to get, or most of the teachers don't have that knowledge on the dynamics that we have in English language and how best we can approach the challenges that we have as far as teaching English is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Dancer, for giving this a broad picture of some challenges teachers down Kenya are facing. And also we are happy to have Yusuf back among us. So Yusuf, before I come to you, I would like to go to see Aaron first and then ask Aaron about the challenges they face in Tanzania and be back to you very soon. So Aaron, what can you tell us about the challenges teachers in Tanzania are facing?
Thank you, Kasum. The first challenge is insufficiency of teaching and learning resources. So these might include textbooks, computers for the case of ICT usage, projectors, and sometimes buildings, the classrooms. So we have cases whereby we have schools that have few buildings, few classrooms, and we have also large classes. By large classes, I mean that you might find a teacher having a class of 100 students or sometimes 150 students. So that's a very large class. And as an English teacher, when you teach English, you have to make sure that the students acquire the 4 skills. So if you are teaching a 150 class, it's very hard to make sure that everyone speaks, everyone reads, everyone listens carefully, and maybe everyone can interpret whatever you are teaching them. So large classroom is a very big challenge, but I hope that the teachers are coping with it. The case of insufficient materials, as Danson said, that now Tanzania is moving from the content curriculum to the competence-based curriculum, whereby teachers have to incorporate using new means of technology. They have to use audio, they have to use videos. So we have schools that have no electricity, they have no projectors, there are no computers. So it's very hard for a teacher to use these tools to teach in their classes. We also lack trainings from the government, of course. Although we have some teachers who are looking for these trainings by themselves. We also thank ELTA for their webinars, which are very helpful to these teachers. So the government, as I said, we're now moving to competence-based curriculum, but teachers like training on how to go about the competence-based curriculum. So those are some few challenges that Tanzanian teachers are facing currently. I wouldn't like to do some repetitions because other challenges are just the same.
All right. Thank you, Iron, for saving time and being very quick and efficient in terms of pointing out the challenges that we can see in Tanzania. So the floor will be back to our friend Youssef. So Youssef, you were talking about the condition, the requirement of hiring teachers in your country before you lost connection. So I would like to give you some few seconds to come back to that question before I will ask you to tell us about the challenges teachers in Ethiopia face. Youssef, the floor is over to you. Youssef, you are muted.
How about now?
Okay, go ahead.
I should have asked for apology before the start of the session, because here in Ethiopia, there is, the breakdown of network due to the chaotic situation in the country that as a journalist, that I don't want to talk the detail. But still, I'm using, VPN to support, the network system. So there might be on and off. So I want you to understand that one. This is my second time when it happened. So I was talking about, the requirements, and I was about to say the last point is about the tertiary level. In the tertiary level, the minimum requirement is someone should have, master, and depending on, the level, whether that is fresh or senior, students, it depends on from a master to PhD, and depending on the PhD, the person might be, assistant professor, associate professor, and full professor. So if a teacher is teaching, degree holders, it could be master or PhD. But for master, it should be PhD. For PhD, there should be professor. But in our context, because in the language sector, we don't have any professor in the area. So 2 associate professors, they teach one subject together. That's how we were taught in the university. So 2 associate professors are considered as 1 professor. So this is how the requirements in a country are. Apart from this, the private schools that I told you, they mainly focus on the skill of the teacher. I mean, the teacher might be graduated from, the social stream. It could be, sociologist or psychologist or history or geography. What they want is the teacher able to speak the language fluently at a point? Because most of the time, this is the case for all, African countries. Even if we master in English, but in most cases, most English language teachers are not able to even express themselves, just let alone, supporting their students, and let alone about the methodology. Sometimes if you I find them in many places, and if you ask them to tell about themselves, they even struggle to say a little bit about themselves. So in most parts of Africa, this is the main challenge. So private schools, because this is their business, and they really give due attention for the language, because here in Ethiopia, their parents believe that their students are learning well if they are able to speak the language fluently. So due to this reason, the private sectors, they try to get teachers who are good at the language, whether they are from any stream. But in the government schools, it's really very strict. Unless you have, unless you are qualified in the area, you are not able to teach, the language. So that's as to, the requirements in the country. So can I come to the other question?
Sure, you can. What are the challenges that most teachers face in Ethiopia?
Well, in contexts like Ethiopia, where English language is taught as a foreign language, students do not have much exposure to the language outside of the classroom. Most of the time, they speak, it could be in the private school or government schools. They just learn in the classroom as a single subject, where they're not supported by other subject teachers. For instance, if you take a chemistry teacher in high school, for example, because in high school, English is the medium of instruction, where every subject is taught in English, except one subject, that is Amharic. It could be sport or music, and whatever subject in high school is only taught in English. But a chemistry teacher will teach his students using, the bilingual system, the translation method. You see it? They teach in English plus what? Mostly in Amharic. Why? Because this is the main issue. Not, for teachers who are not graduated in the same department in English. Those who graduated from the same department in English, those who master in English, they really struggle to talk the language. So other teachers, other subject teachers like chemistry, biology, physics, and others, imagine what would happen. So they're not able to support their students. They're not support their students to speak the language in English. That is the main reason. So in most cases, the students get introduced to the language in general when they join primary schools, before primary schools. But in government, this is the context in government schools. In private school, they start from kindergarten. From kindergarten, they're able to learn the language. So if you look at a prep student who completed, 3 levels, KG1, KG2, or KG3, kindergarten 1 and 2 and 3, at the level of 3, private school students are able to read and write. When you look at, the government schools, they start the ABCD, not the sounds, the letter names, because these are quite different that most people don't understand. We have letter names and letter sounds. If they are letter sounds, students will be able to learn, or will be able to read, will be able to write if they know the sounds. Because any language, the start of any language is the sound. But in our context, majority of the teachers, because they don't have very good background, they rather teach their students the letter names. A very simple example, they teach them A instead of teaching them A. They teach them T instead of teaching them T, right? That is the problem. So they start this one when they start, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. So they really struggle a lot. So as a result, teaching English to schools and learning, it has a variety of challenges. So in learning English as a foreign language, primary school students, whatever level they are at, first primary, secondary, it could also be, tertiary. For tertiary, the problem is for their writing. A tertiary level student is not able to write a very cohesive and coherent paragraph. That is a problem. And in the first place, the students have to deal with a new language, which is unknown to them in a new situation. So English as a new language may be confusing to students, and the students learn it in a new environment. These students are gradually getting used to being in a classroom rather than being at home with their parents or family. So the other challenge which the EFL learners face is that they should make sense of new language, and they should try to produce it in a very good way. This necessitates numerous complicated processes in their minds as they struggle to choose the correct way to say something. So the EFL students in Ethiopia are also being challenged with mastering the skills of reading and writing in English. Since the language is new to them, they find it in school for the first time in most cases. Learning and practicing reading and writing skills is frightening for the learners. So there are also differences between teaching first language and second or foreign language to students. This can be a challenge for teachers who have been, teaching first language, or in contexts where first language is used as a medium of instruction. So regarding, the demarcation between the teaching of first language and second language, there are too many researchers who indicate that English is learned in much the same way as first language, if it is, learned in a similar natural context or conditions. So the clear demarcation is that children use the subconscious rules, which they have used, the first language on the second language. So children are often challenged in second or foreign language learning when they wrongly use L1 rule to L2 learning. So this usually affects the teaching and learning of English in all levels, I can say. in EFL classroom, English as a foreign language classrooms. So here, teaching or learning English as a foreign language in classroom is quite distinctive from learning first or mother tongue in different ways. So how do teachers face problems in this regard? And others points were mentioned by the other panelists. I just don't want to talk about the class size, because sometimes when you share experiences with others, that is going to be a very good opportunity where you can look at yourself. Because when we talk about the iron scales, so students might be from 100 to 150. But I don't want to talk about this one, because in Ethiopia context, the maximum student in the classroom could be 50 to 60. That is the maximum. So I was about to talk about this one. I don't think this is going to be a very good issue, because there are others who are suffering in a worse situation than we are doing in Ethiopia. So these are some of the challenges that I've seen, even including my own practical experience.
Well,
thank you.
Well done. Thank you very much, Yusuf from Ethiopia. Thank you also so much, Aaron from Tanzania, and also Dancer from Kenya, whom we have the pleasure tonight to host in our Africa ELTA affiliate series, Teachers' Voices. So for those who have just joined us, we would like to say welcome. And we also appreciate all the contributions, the questions and the comments in the chat box. So we are moving to our fifth questions directed to Dancer from Kenya. Now you have pinpointed the challenges that we are facing in your context. I would like to know exactly how are you managing these challenges? So what solution would you bring to these challenges your teachers are facing in Kenya? Dancer.
Thank you, Asum. Well, I've talked about one of the biggest challenges being the lack of the training and the expertise to handle the dynamics that come with English language teaching, especially in Kenya, in Africa. So one of the ways through which most of our teachers are trying to cope with these issues, first of all, by attending workshops. We find that sometimes we have our government, that is through the Ministry of Education and even the Teacher Service Commission, but also we have some other language-oriented bodies around the country that hold conferences and other workshops that are meant to equip the teachers with knowledge and the pedagogical skills that can help them to become better people and better teachers. Also, we and some teachers also going for these professional development courses. I have interacted with some, and actually I've done one also. Sometimes last year I did the artisan certificate. It was funded by a foreign university, but I did it online. And the reason I went for this is because I found that there was the need that I go and get some more skills and knowledge, pedagogical skills and knowledge, so that I can become a better teacher. And I remember that sometimes back last year, I interacted with a number of teachers, and they were so positive about the whole idea. And even some could even send me a message, Dan, how did you go about this? So you find that most of these teachers are very eager to learn and get the knowledge and the skills that will be essential for them, so that they can become better teachers, and they can also handle the dynamics that come with the changes, or the dynamics that come with English language teaching. Also, on the issue of the number of students in our classes, I think I did not mention about that, but this one is also a very, very big problem. In Kenya, we normally have, like in high schools, most of the schools that are highly populated, we have around 50 students. And when you go to other schools, you find even around 30, depending on the population of the school. So sometimes it becomes very hard as a teacher to give that individualized attention, because you realize that in English, for example, if you are teaching them writing skills, you will need to go and look at the books that these students have written, or the items that they have written. For example, if you are teaching something on functional writing, or maybe how to express themselves in form of an essay or such, you'll need to go and look at these books. But one of the ways through which the teachers have come up with an idea is that they have tried to split these students into groups. Like what we do in our school, one of the classes, most of the classes have around 50 students. So in case you want to teach a certain skill, you divide the number of the students that you have you divide them into groups. And then when you have these groups, then you can now give that individualized attention. And in most cases, what we do is that you come up with the ability groups. That is, we have those students, you find that their level of understanding is a bit higher than the others. And maybe theirs is not learning about the basics. They have already learned the basics and now they want to advance to another level. So the moment now you have that one and this one is outside now the class setup, maybe like when you are having some other activities, you find that it becomes quite easier for you to give that individualized attention. And eventually now this issue of population whereby you have a large class that you could not give that individualized attention now comes to an end. Also, we've had the issues to do with the technology. This one has been a big challenge because most of the schools, especially the public schools, are not well equipped with the technological gadgets and other things, and even electricity. Some of the schools are in very remote areas. So you find that it becomes very hard for, as much as you could have the expertise and even the urge to use technology in your teaching, sometimes you find that these challenges come in. But I've seen teachers go extra mile, and then they use even their personal items they have. For example, if you have something that you want to do and the school cannot facilitate, you just go, some of the teachers go out of their way to use their personal resources so that they can make this exercise quite effective. So basically, our teachers try to give their best, and it becomes quite promising when you see that despite the challenges, people are still trying to look at the methods that can better their students. We've come also with some schools that come up with language policies, whereby the students are given, like if it is 2 or 3 days in a week, whereby they're supposed to communicate in English. Like in my school, from Monday to Thursday, the students are supposed to converse in English. Regardless of whatever thing you are doing or who you are speaking to, you must speak in English. And then on Friday and Saturday and Sunday, that is over the weekends, you speak in Swahili. Why is this important? We realized it was important because it encourages them to put the skills and the learning that they learn in class into practice. Because when it comes to speaking skills, there's no way that you'll become a good speaker if you don't practice. So we try to come up with these language policies so that at least we can have the student now get to love the language and also use it. Also, another way is through these co-curricular activities. In Kenya, we have various co-curricular activities that are mainly centered to help the students up their skills in English language. For example, you have the drama festivals, you have the music festivals, and through them, we see students composing and even reciting choral verses. We see them doing poetry. We see them even acting in drama. And in this case, you find that because of the nature of these activities, students are young and they like something that is going to give them some time to get entertained, interact with others. So because of this urge for them to become or to be considered for these particular events, they will need to up their skills and by practicing it. So you find that the teachers have used all these co-curricular activities and other methodologies so that they can give the student that interest that they need to have in the language, to use it, that is in written communication and even in the spoken communication. Thank you, Kasum.
Thank you, Yanso, and thank you also for Yusuf, who is fighting his best in order to be back again, despite the network issues he's having. And I would also like to remind to our panelists and participants that we are almost running out of time because the session was supposed to last just 1 hour. Yet it is very informative and very interesting session. And also we have like 2 or 3 questions to cover. Right, so I would like also to go to visit Aaron in Tanzania. So Aaron, the question is, how do teachers manage these challenges in Tanzania?
Well, thank you, Kasum. I would like to answer the question on 2 different angles. I'll start with the teachers. So for the case of teachers, in terms of resources and other things, they tend to, as Danson says, there are teachers who use their own resources. I'll give you an example of, if they want the students to listen, it's a listening activity. Some teachers would come with their own Bluetooth speakers to the classroom. then use that for the students to listen to audios and then answer questions. Some teachers also go to the extent of bringing their own projectors to classes so that at least the students will see the videos, and that might facilitate the session. We have teachers who have been joining different webinars and different courses, online courses. As I said earlier, that we have Africa ELTA that provides webinars every month to these teachers. We also have ELTA that provides these same webinars to the teachers every month. The second angle is for the association, since I'm representing ELTA. So as an association, we have different ways that we are doing to help different teachers across the country. The first one is webinars. We have webinars. We've been doing webinars for the past year, 2 webinars per month. So in these webinars, we have presenters who share their experience, they share their teaching methodologies and different things that have to do with the English language teaching and learning. We also have online courses that have been offered by the association. We had Prelim 2 last year that took about 80 teachers across the country. So 8 teachers were being trained in this course and they graduated after, it was 3 months. We also had TCPD, that is Teacher Continuing Profession Development courses, which are also online through Zoom. The last cohort had 200 teachers across the country. We have 25 regions. So we had teachers from all those regions joining through Zoom, and then they've been trained by different trainers. We also had workshops. We have workshops at region level. We have different trainers in different regions. We call these chapters. So we have trainers in chapters who are training their fellow teachers where they are. For example, this year at the beginning, we had what you call the baseline orientation training. So teachers in different regions who are teaching Form 1 in this year had been trained by these trainers. They were told about different teaching methodologies, how to handle large classes, how to handle Form 1s, which are currently the ones who are trying to use English as a medium of instruction in secondary school, since it begins in Form 1. So we have those workshops in different regions. We also have conference. We have our upcoming conference this month, at the end of this month. So through this conference, we are hoping that teachers who come to the conference will learn different things about the teaching and learning of English language in their context. And we're hoping that when they get these things, they'll go and apply them in their own classrooms. So these things help us at least to help other teachers get trainings that the government isn't providing. We also have, because I said we have different chapters, so we need trainers in every region. Currently, we are running the training of trainers, TOT, whereby every region has 3 trainers being trained. And at the end of the course, they have to go back and train other teachers in their regions and write the report to us so that we know that teachers have been trained. So we are trying our ways to reach to different teachers across the country, whether they are in the villages or in the cities and towns. So those who are in cities and towns is very easier because they have internet, so we can connect through Zoom. But those who are in the interior parts, that's the one we are targeting now by using these trainers that are being trained so that they can go to the interior parts where there is no internet and at least get contact to these teachers, try to exchange whatever they have with them. So that's what the association has been doing and will keep doing so far. Thank you.
Thank you to Aaron for giving us, broader information about ways and means teachers are managing, the challenges they face in Tanzania. So I would like also to go and meet my friends from Ethiopia. Yusuf, please, would you like to tell us about how do your teachers manage, the challenges they face in your context?
Well, as to the particular question you raised, I can say majority of the teachers, I don't think they're struggling or they're figuring out to overcome the challenges they've been facing. But there are like quite few teachers who really graduated from the Department of English. They try to figure out and they try to update and upgrade themselves from various sources. For example, they update by going to different associations, especially associations related to English language. And they also upgrade themselves by going to universities and by upgrading themselves. But if you ask me because that's what I understand, but if you ask me what my association has been working in the area, that's going to be a very different question, which is not related to the question you raised. If you ask me about this one, ELTA, which stands for Ethiopian English Language Professional Association, has succeeded in having continuous professional development activities proven in its regular sessions, held in every 2 weeks. We have the bi-monthly regular sessions where teachers come together and share their experiences. And because when they happen to be there in the session, there's going to be an opportunity where teachers can share the methodology that other teachers use. It could be, for example, teaching a very simple present tense. So the way I teach might be quite different from the way other teachers teach. So when that teacher, shares that experience in the regular session, so there's going to be a very good opportunity where others can share the way how that teacher delivers the subject matter to their students. And apart from this, the sessions that I told you about, the regular sessions, they give a platform for members to share their experience and to excel even themselves, both personally and professionally. And apart from this, my association, in collaboration with the British Council and the American Embassy, we have too many trainers in the association, where those trainers, they go around the country and then they give training for teachers. That is being done in collaboration, like I told you, with the British Council and the American Embassy. I think apart from this, now we are setting up too many chapters in the regions, and we're even setting up chapters not in the regions, in big cities across the country, where like teachers can come together. So my association is like the mother association. It overlooks all the branches or all the chapters across the country. So we're doing this to address and to reach out other teachers who are teaching in the very remote part of the country, right? So we've been working aggressively to enhance teachers' professional development. There is a concept and there is a sense from the Ethiopian Ministry of Education, which says continuous professional development. I remember when I was doing my master, so my thesis was on English language continuous professional development. So it's really a puzzle for me, because when you ask it, at the end of the day, my findings, they really indicate that how there is misinformation and disinformation among us, teachers and supervisors and people from the Ministry of Education. Because teachers on their part, they say that whatever system you implement in a classroom, because this teaching English is quite different from teaching other subjects, because teaching English is a skill, and you have to think about how you can enhance the skills, especially the 4 skills of your students. And teachers, they pinpoint out that whatever we do in the classroom, whatever mechanism or method we implement in the classroom, unless you just put that on the paper, that's meaningless. So the government evaluates you, because at the end of the day, the promotion will be based on what? The rubrics that you are given from the Ministry of Education. And if you ask the Ministry of Education, it's like pointing one another, right? When you point it, your finger to somebody else, the other 3 are saying, what about you, right? So this is what is happening in the country. So if you ask, the people from the Ministry of Education, it could be from the Warada Bureau or the Zone Bureau, that's what they say. They tell you that, teachers are not eager to update themselves. They don't want to face, challenges. Whenever you bring something new to them, they always resist and they always challenge you. So there is no win-win approach among those people. That's what I understood from my MA thesis. So I don't think that majority of the teachers, from my experience, if you ask me, because I really supervise many schools here in the capital of Addis Ababa, majority of the teachers, they don't want to face challenges. What I mean is that if they teach grade 5 for quite a few years, they want to continue teaching grade 5. That's all, because they know the system after all. So they don't want to face going to grade 7 or grade 9. So I'm very sorry to say this. To what extent are we trying to are we challenging ourselves? This is the question. But apart from that, the way I told you, what my association has been doing is crystal clear that I just told you about this one. But how do teachers, try to figure out those challenges? Still, those challenges are the challenges here in the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Irene, Youssef, and Dancer, for sharing your experience, ideas, and strategies.
Hello, Adi.
All right, so as I said early back, we are running out of time. So I would like to invite my panelists to be very short and concise in the upcoming 2 questions, just to close up our so informative, interesting session of tonight. So just one or 2 more questions, and then we clear off, right? So going to see Dancer. Dancer, the question we would like to ask you is, what are the English teaching materials you use in your school? What are the English teaching materials you use in your school? Very quickly, please.
Thank you. So I'll talk about this in terms of 2 categories. First of all, we have the materials that are recommended by the government, that is, they are provided by the government, or rather recommended by the government. In this case, we have course books. These ones are provided by the government of Kenya. So we have, if in secondary school, we have a course book for Form 1, Form 2, and Form 3, and Form 4. And this one is a book that has the syllabus that is common in all the schools, that is countrywide. The same also applies to primary schools. Also, we have some set books. In this case, we call them, we take the set books as some of the books that are, some literature books that have been written by various writers, that is in Africa and even outside Africa. So in this case, as you are teaching the reading, speaking, and writing skills, you can consider using them as well. Also, in primary schools, many we have the story books that some are recommended also by the government. Then the other category, we have the items that, the materials that are mainly used by the teachers, that is based on your individual preferences. In this case, we have teachers who go for the audiovisual items, like the flash cans. There are some teachers who will prepare flash cans to go with them to class. We also have others who are going to download materials from YouTube. For example, in my case, if I am teaching pronunciation of words, for example, maybe homophones and such, I'll just go to the internet and then I get some videos and some other materials that will be suitable for the student, and then I play them so that they can get to learn exactly what do I want to them to understand. Also, sometimes we use newspapers and other journals that you have around. Like in my case, in my school, the school normally provides newspapers every day. So in a case whereby I'm teaching a writing skill, I will go and then get a newspaper, and then I choose an article that I find suitable for these students. Then the moment I give them, I will try to explain that this is not something that I have done myself, but it has been done by someone else. So in this case, they will understand the application bit of the content that they cover in the school and such. Also, we have posters and some other materials that you can even hang on the classes, on the walls on the classes, and even you can, like in my school, we have posters that you hang on the walls. In case there's a technique, there's a skill that you want the learners to get, and you find that it requires them to keep on, or to have, for them to familiarize, they have to see it now and then. So you just get something like a post, and then you fix it at a place that is very, very convenient for these students to see. And then basically, we have most of these materials that we use are teacher-centered. Sorry, they are teacher-based materials, because you are the one who is going to get them, not necessarily the government or the school is going to provide to you. It is you, the teacher, who is going to provide the materials, or to look for the ones that you feel will be suitable for your students, so that you can test, so that you can teach a certain skill of interests. Thank you.
You're muted.
Kasum, you are muted.
Okay, but now I'm facing some internet issues. So the question was, what are the teaching materials you are using in your context? Irene.
Thank you. I think we're having the same materials. It will be just a repetition. We have audios, teacher use audios, they use videos, they go with their own projectors, their own speakers. But sometimes what's different is that you have teachers who go to the extent of telling the students to prepare some materials. So we also have materials prepared by students, which are also being used for the teaching and learning process in our classes. So we have students who have prepared poems, we have seen students preparing drama, and all those things that we can use in our classes. All the other things are just the same. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron, for being very short and concise. So Youssef, I'm glad to ask you the same question. What are the English teaching materials you use in your Ethiopian context?
Here I need to be, short and precise. It's all the same like what I mentioned. So there's nothing different from what they've said.
Yep.
So similar to what they've said, the panelists.
Okay, thank you so much again for your valuable input from your different contexts. And now we are going to check the last and final question of our session today. It's about student learning English motivation. So Danso, what motivates students in your country to learn English? Getting a job, for example?
Thank you. Well, I'll dispute that. Actually, this week I asked my students, I've on several occasions asked my students, how many would like to become teachers? And this week I asked my class of 44 students, and unfortunately only one wanted to become a teacher. And you can imagine that that student did not intend to become a teacher of English. So I don't think it's more of job opportunities, because most of my students don't think about jobs like becoming a teacher of English and whatever. But I think whatever motivates students to learn is that when you come up with some activities that are going to bring fun or create fun. In this case, the reason why I was talking about the inclusion of the drama festivals, the music festivals, even some activities like games and other things in the classes, is because the students get to learn and understand the concepts better when there is that intrinsic motivation. Why am I doing this? I'm doing this because I am enjoying it. I'm having fun. And therefore, that is why as a teacher, I always prefer that I teach the students the skills using something that they will get to love, and they will have the urge themselves that I'm doing this so that I can become a better person, yes, in communication in English, but at the same time, I am having fun. Because when you say that you are expecting the student to learn English so that they can get jobs, that one is not likely to happen. You'll have a class of 50 and probably many of them will not even have that interest of becoming teachers. So it's about how does it entertain them, or how what kind of fun they have as they we learn English as well. And the most also important thing also in our case, because of the system, is that some of them just go to class and study because they want to pass in KCSE. That is the final exam. But because of the introduction of the competency-based curriculum that is now being phased in as we slowly, you find that this aspect of students now learning English for the purpose of passing in the exams is now coming to an end. Because in this case, it's not about the grades that you're going to get. It's about whether are you acquiring the skills or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Dancer, for being very informative about these specific questions. I would like also to go and meet Iron. Iron, in Tanzania, what motivates students in Tanzania to learn English?
Thank you, Kasum. Well, I listened to Danson, and then when he said that none of his students wants to become English language teachers, well, that's the worst. But for my case, I think the students want to learn English language for the sake of the jobs, of course, because in Tanzania, we have Kiswahili and English as the official languages. So if you want to have a job in an office, either it's a government office or an NGO, you need to know how to speak, how to listen, and all those skills of English language. For those who want to go to high school and colleges, they also need to learn English. So I think that's also an internal motivation for them. We have students now who tend to associate themselves with social media. So in this social media, they tend to connect with people from different countries. So the language that every country understands and knows is English. So there is that internal motivation for them to learn the language because of these connections and social medias like Facebook, Instagram, and things like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. So going to meet Yusuf in Ethiopia. Yusuf, the same question, but maybe different answers. What motivates students in your country to learn English? Yusuf, you are muted. You are muted, Yusuf.
Okay. What about now?
Go ahead, please.
You know, students in Ethiopia learn English as a foreign language for various purposes. But just to mention quite few of them, the first one is, one among their purposes is that EFL is a compulsory subject starting from the lower primary grade. So understanding this one, they use this as a motive because they don't have maybe an option. The other one is, the other reason is that EFL is the medium of instruction in secondary schools and in universities. So knowing this one, because at the end of the day, when they join secondary schools and universities, because the medium of instruction will be completely in English, because English is considered as a content for all, not the subject, but is considered as a content. So knowing this one, they really get motivated to do it. In addition, they also learn EFL to succeed in passing, classroom and national examinations. Not only national examinations, it could also be international examinations like testers. Because at the end of the day, they just want to go to universities across the world, right? And related to this one, the last and the most important part of learning EFL or English languages, students need to learn English as it is an international language, and they think that the language is indispensable for their success in their career and at a global arena, and to widen their opportunity of getting jobs. Because here in Ethiopia, we have too many, NGOs, too many charities. The official language in Ethiopia, right? So the second official language after Amharic is English. So to join those, NGOs where they paid, the best salaries in the country, they know that they should know the language. So to get the jobs in Ethiopia, especially in the NGOs, there is no choice, because at the end of the day, when you go there, you have to be fluent enough in English to be part of, their organizations. So those are some of, the motives that Ethiopian students learn, EFL. Thank you.
Thank you tremendously, Yusuf from Ethiopia. Aaron from Tanzania, a dancer from Kenya. It was really fantastic, amazing listening to you all sharing your different perspectives, challenges, and strategies to help teachers develop professionally. So here we are. We have come up all the questions that were on the agenda. So I would like just to read few comments people said in the chat box, and then we call it a day. So I'm going to read one comment from Jackson. He said, Mr. Youssef, I really appreciate your English language teaching methodology. You started with familiarizing them with complex vocabularies. Thereafter, you kick the ball. Well done. And Ayman also said, interference is a natural stage in the language acquisition process, so it should not be shunned. Another comment from Mawa Nakambo, he said, this abruptly change of language from one to another, as a teacher, you need to know the background of your students. Another comment also from Alice Troyite, he said, the policy of English language as means of instruction of learning in Tanzania is a challenging one, since in primary school, all subjects are taught in Swahili, while English remains as a single subject taught in English. When enrolled to secondary education, they find out that all subjects are taught in English and Swahili, etc. And another comment from Jackson says, Mrs. Iron Maganga from Tanzania has nailed on the board the issue of teaching large English classes as one among the obstacles toward better performance and understanding of the language learners, right? And the final comment is from Geraldine. He said, let teacher pick English language willingly instead of being forced to teach it. And the last comment is from Kunchala. He said, thanks to all. This is John Deju Some, member of Burkina English Teachers Association, BETA. Thanks to the panelists. I love the idea of cross-languaging in multicultural context. This notion is well researched in South Africa.
Kasum, I can't hear you anymore.
We lost him.
That's the network breakdown, maybe.
Do you want to close up the meeting? Say a final word and.
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you everyone for attending this great session with Ethiopia, Kenya, and ELTA, Africa ELTA Series 3. We're looking forward to the Series 4. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording.
Thank you, Adi.